USC brought in one of its worst classes last season, back in its usual territory of number 2 in the Pac-12, 13th rated nationally according to 247 Sports, and a big quarterback commit out of Utah today.
Yeah, it's interesting. USC signed 12 four-star players, and they got Jackson Dart, the quarterback out of Draper, Utah. This kid's really good. He was under the radar until going into the season. Part of what put him on the radar was being able to play. It was COVID, because there was no high school football in California all fall. There was delayed starts from other states. So all of a sudden, this kid's on ESPN when his school had no games scheduled to be shown on ESPN in the fall. And ESPN's scrambling to show some elite players and some elite schools. And this kid winds up on everybody's radar, and for a good reason. He threw for nearly 4,700 yards this season. And so he announced today, he had it narrowed down to a few schools, made his announcement today. What makes the situation a little bit more interesting is that SC already had Miller Moss in-house also, the 4-star quarterback recruit out of Bishop Alemany High School out here in Mission Hills. So they've got Keaton Slovis, who just finished his sophomore year, had a very successful, or is about to finish his sophomore year, very successful sophomore year. You got 2 young, hot prospects coming in. This feels like a couple of years ago, frankly, in the USC quarterback room, when they had JT Daniels in there, they had Jack Sears in there, they had Keaton Slovis in there, and it was a really crowded room. And, Daniels got hurt, and Sears thought he was going to step in. Slovis gets the job. You look a year later, and both Daniels and Sears are playing somewhere else because they weren't going to stick around and wait. And now you've got really almost a similar situation in here now, with Slovis being the incumbent, and then these 2 other guys, Dart and Moss, coming in. It's an interesting prospect for Clay Helton to have to take on. I got to say this, though. USC fans complain about Clay Helton all the time, and I get it. He doesn't win games he should win. They think he is worse than he is. He's got an undefeated team. He's going to the conference championship game. Pac-12 team isn't going to make the playoffs, so let's just set that aside for now. But you have that kind of success. You pull in the number 2 recruiting class in the country, a top 12 recruiting class in the entire country, number 2 in the conference, rather. I mean, it's a heck of a job to get 12 4-star players to sign in like he did. I think he did a fantastic job.
No question about that. Clay Helton, to the chagrin of many USC fans, is undefeated.
Right. They're unhappy about it. He's still aligned to get Corey Foreman, the 5-star defensive lineman. It's coming down really between Clemson and USC. And I got to tell you, in the last 6 weeks, I'm starting to put that lead towards USC. I really thought he was going to be all in for Clemson. But when you follow him on social media and hear from people around him, you're really going to start to lean towards USC. And that's a legitimate 5-star recruit.
All right. When we look at this class, Matt, who stands out to you? Who's at the top of the board that most people are really excited about?
I would have to say Miller Moss. And the reason why I say him is because he's a 4-star quarterback. But the thing about him is that a lot of people praise his intelligence and his work ethic, is that he can make throws that you don't see a lot of people make. He's a very smart football player, very intelligent football player who wants to get better and better and better each and every time. And that's something you don't hear with a lot of, you don't hear about that from a lot of players, Last time we heard about a QB who can make throws that a lot of people don't make, that's Sam Darnold. And we saw how he panned out at USC. And we saw, you know, he ended up being drafted. I believe he ended up being a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. So, you know, a lot of people are saying he kind of reminds them of he kind of reminds people of him, but his intelligence is just out of this world, which is something you don't see from a young player. So that's someone who a lot of people are very excited about, including Graham Harrell, who said that he has the makings to be a star. So that's, you know, that's one guy who a lot of people are very excited about is Miller Moss.
When you look down the board, anybody else that you really like that may not necessarily be that highly touted or publicized, but based on some of the reports that you've seen, based on anything that you've seen on tape that you like?
One guy who I really like, and it's someone who a lot of people are not really talking about. Jalen Smith is somebody who I'm excited for. And the reason for that is because not only he can play corner, but he can play in the slot. He can play as a nickelback. He can play safety. He can even play linebacker for you. So he's someone who I think USC is going to plug around. He's a 4-star. He's a 4-star athlete. He's somebody who I think USC can play right away, especially noting that you have Elijah Griffin who's going to be a junior. So he's somebody who can play right away, who can slide into that nickel situation, or somebody who you can put in at safety, or you can move him to linebacker. So either way, I think it just depends on how USC and Todd Orlando, how they want to use him, you know, in his freshman year.